Imagine waking up to a bank account that feels like a clean slate, not a battlefield of bills and subscriptions.
What if you could erase all that noise in just 30 days and still feel richer than ever? What do you think?
Let me know in the comments. I really want to hear your perspective.
2 years ago, my finances looked like a chaotic mess.
I was drowning in monthly subscriptions I barely used, impulse purchases that vanished as quickly as they arrived, and a credit card balance that seemed to grow on its own.
I knew I needed a change, but cutting back a little here and a little there never gave me the relief I craved.
That's when I stumbled upon the idea of radical minimalism, not just a lifestyle of fewer things, but a complete redesign of the relationship I have with money. Radical minimalism in finance is more than frugality. Frugality is about spending less, often by hunting for coupons or waiting for sales. Minimalism, on the other hand, is about spending smarter, aligning every dollar with a deeper purpose, and eliminating the clutter that distracts you from what truly matters.
It's the difference between clipping coupons for a coffee you'll never drink and choosing to spend that money on a morning walk that fuels your creativity.
The minimalists once said, "It's not about having less, it's about making room for more of what matters."
That simple shift in mindset is the foundation of the experiment I'm about to share. First, let's understand the problem we're tackling. Recent surveys show that about 70% of adults feel financially overwhelmed. Hidden costs creep in through tiny micro-spends, those daily coffee runs, streaming services you forgot you signed up for,
and the endless stream of free apps that secretly charge you a subscription fee.
These small leaks add up, creating a financial fog that makes it hard to see the bigger picture.
When you add lifestyle inflation, spending more as your income grows, the fog becomes a storm.
Now, why does a radical approach make sense? Because incremental changes often leave the underlying structure untouched. You might cancel a few subscriptions, but you still keep the habit of buying things you don't need.
Radical minimalism asks you to strip away the entire scaffolding.
To ask yourself, what would my life look like if I only kept the financial commitments that directly support my core values? It's a thought experiment that forces you to confront the true cost of every habit. There are 3 core principles that guide this journey. The first is intentionality. Every dollar should have a purpose, a clear reason for being there. Before you spend, ask yourself if that expense moves you toward a goal or simply fills a momentary desire. The second principle is elimination. Identify the noise, those recurring charges, the impulse buys, the just-in-case savings accounts that never get used, and cut them out before you try to add anything new. The third principle is alignment. Your financial system should mirror the life you want to live, not the one you're conditioned to think you need. To put these ideas into practice, I designed a 30-day experiment that anyone can try. It starts with a deep audit. Pull all your bank statements, credit card bills, and subscription receipts into one place. Look for patterns. You'll likely see a handful of categories that dominate your spending, maybe dining out, streaming services, and online shopping. Write down the top 5 categories that feel the most unnecessary. Then, for each category, ask yourself a simple question. If I removed this expense entirely, would my life suffer, or would I actually feel lighter? The goal isn't to become a hermit. It's to discover which expenses are truly essential. Next, create a zero budget for the next 30 days. This doesn't mean you have no money to spend, but that you allocate every dollar before the month begins, leaving no room for unplanned purchases. Start with your essential costs, housing, utilities, groceries, then assign the remaining funds to specific goals, a savings bucket, an experience you value, or a charitable donation. Anything that isn't assigned is a red flag, a signal to pause and reconsider. By the end of the month, you'll have a clear map of where every cent went, and you'll see the gaps where money was previously disappearing into the void. During the experiment, track your emotional response. Notice how it feels to say no to a subscription you've had for years, or to walk past a coffee shop without buying a latte.
Many people experience a surge of freedom, a sense of control returning to their lives.
Others feel a pang of loss, which is natural. Our brains are wired to associate spending with reward.
The key is to observe these feelings without judgment and to remind yourself of the larger purpose behind each decision.
If this is blowing your mind, Hit subscribe and let's keep exploring together.
The next step after the audit is to redesign your financial ecosystem. Replace the eliminated expenses with habits that reinforce your values. For instance, if you cut a streaming service, use that time and money to read a book that expands your knowledge, or take a walk in nature that boosts your mental health.
If you stopped buying daily coffee, invest that money in a high-quality home brewing setup, turning a habit into a ritual you truly enjoy.
The idea is to fill the void left by the cuts with intentional, value-driven activities. Another powerful tool is the one-in, one-out rule for financial commitments. Whenever you add a new recurring expense, you must first remove an existing one of equal or greater cost. This keeps your financial load steady and forces you to evaluate each addition critically.
Over time, you'll develop a natural filter that only lets in expenses that truly align with your goals.
Sustainability is the final piece of the puzzle. Radical minimalism isn't a one-time purge. It's a continuous practice of reflection and adjustment. Set a quarterly review where you revisit your budget, your values, and your spending patterns. Ask yourself if any new habits have crept in that no longer serve you. Adjust, eliminate, and realign as needed. By making this a regular habit, you protect yourself from slipping back into old patterns and keep the financial fog at bay.
The benefits of this approach extend beyond the bank balance.
When you free yourself from unnecessary financial obligations, you gain mental clarity, reduce stress, and create space for experiences that truly enrich your life.
You'll find that wealth isn't just about numbers on a screen. It's about the freedom to choose how you spend your time and energy.
And that freedom is the ultimate reward of radical minimalism.
Smash that like button if this resonated with you.
And stay tuned for the next part, where we dive into real-world stories of people who have taken this to the extreme and the surprising outcomes they discovered. Now let's meet a few people who decided to push the boundaries of financial minimalism, far beyond the usual cut, a few subscriptions mindset. The first story belongs to Maya, a freelance graphic designer from a coastal town who, after a year of feeling trapped by recurring bills, committed to a 30-day zero-expense challenge. She started by listing every recurring charge on a spreadsheet, from the streaming platform she barely used to the gym membership she hadn't visited in months.
Then she canceled each one by one, and replaced the freed-up cash with a simple habit, a daily 30-minute walk on the beach,
a practice that cost nothing but gave her a sense of renewal.
By the end of the month, Maya's bank balance showed a surplus of $1,000, a figure she had never seen in her account before.
More importantly, she reported a dramatic drop in anxiety levels, saying that the constant buzz of notification alerts about upcoming payments had vanished,
leaving her mind clearer and more focused on her creative work.
The second example comes from Carlos, a software engineer living in a bustling metropolis who took the radical step of eliminating all discretionary spending for 90 days. He sold his high-end coffee machine, stopped ordering takeout, and even gave up his weekend brunch outings.
Instead, he invested the money he would have spent on coffee and meals into a high-interest savings account, watching the balance grow steadily each week.
By the end of the 90-day period, Carlos had accumulated a cushion of $3,000, enough to cover 3 months of living expenses without touching his paycheck.
He also discovered that the ritual of brewing his own coffee at home turned into a mindful practice, allowing him to savor each sip and appreciate the simplicity of the process. When asked about the hardest part, Carlos admitted that the social pressure of declining invitations was challenging.
But he found that honest conversations with friends about his goals often led to deeper connections, as they respected his commitment and sometimes even joined him in his minimalist experiments.
The third story belongs to Lena, a recent college graduate who, after graduating with a mountain of student loans,
decided to adopt a minimalist financial framework as a way to regain control. She began by applying the one-in, one-out rule to every new expense she considered. For instance, when she thought about buying a new wardrobe piece, she first evaluated whether she could eliminate an existing subscription of equal or greater cost. In many cases, she found that a small streaming service could be swapped for a second-hand clothing purchase,
aligning her spending with both her style and her desire to reduce digital clutter.
Over the course of 6 months, Lena managed to reduce her monthly outflow by 20%, freeing up cash to make extra payments on her student loans.
The result was a faster reduction of her debt balance, which in turn lowered the interest she paid over the life of the loan. Lena also highlighted the psychological benefit. Each intentional decision reinforced her sense of agency,
turning what once felt like a financial burden into a series of purposeful choices. These real-world accounts illustrate a common thread. The act of stripping away financial excess does more than boost numbers on a balance sheet.
It reshapes the relationship you have with money, time, and personal fulfillment.
When you remove the noise, you create space for clarity, and that clarity often reveals opportunities you never noticed before. It also forces you to confront the emotional triggers that drive impulse purchases, such as the desire for instant gratification or the fear of missing out. By confronting those triggers head-on, you develop a stronger internal compass that guides you toward decisions that truly serve your long-term vision. Now that you've seen how others have navigated the extreme end of minimalist finance, let's walk through a practical experiment you can start today, even if you're only dipping your toes into the water. The first step is to conduct a comprehensive audit of every financial commitment you have, from the obvious monthly rent or mortgage payment to the hidden micro-spends that slip through unnoticed, like that daily latte or the occasional app purchase. Write each item down on a piece of paper or a digital note, and beside each entry, note the purpose it serves in your life. Ask yourself 3 simple questions. Does this expense align with my core values? Does it bring measurable joy or benefit? Could I achieve the same outcome with a lower-cost alternative? If the answer to any of these questions is no, flag that item for elimination. Next, set a realistic time frame for the purge. For many people, a 30-day window provides enough momentum to see tangible results without feeling overwhelmed. During this period, focus on removing the flagged items one by one, cancel subscriptions, pause memberships, and replace costly habits with low-cost or free alternatives. For example, if you're giving up a streaming service, consider borrowing movies from the local library or watching free documentaries online.
If you're cutting back on dining out, experiment with cooking simple meals at home, turning the kitchen into a creative space rather than a chore.
The key is to replace the void left by each eliminated expense with an activity that reinforces your values, whether that's reading, exercising,
or spending quality time with loved ones.
While you're in the midst of this experiment, track the money you save each day. Use a simple spreadsheet or a budgeting app to log the amount you would have spent versus the amount you actually spent.
Over the course of the month, you'll start to see a pattern emerge, and the cumulative savings will become a visual reminder of your progress.
This tangible evidence can be incredibly motivating, especially when the initial excitement of the purge begins to wane. After the 30-day period, it's time to evaluate the outcomes. Look at 3 key metrics: the total amount saved, the impact on your stress levels, and the degree to which you felt your life aligned with your values.
You may discover that certain expenses, while seemingly small, had a disproportionate effect on your mental bandwidth.
Perhaps you realized that the daily coffee shop visit, though inexpensive, added a hidden cost in terms of time spent waiting in line and the mental load of remembering to bring your wallet. Or maybe you found that a particular subscription, despite its low price, contributed little to your overall happiness, making it an easy candidate for permanent removal. Once you've identified the winners and losers, solidify the changes that brought you the most benefit. For the expenses you decided to keep, consider negotiating better rates or finding more efficient alternatives. For instance, if you retained a gym membership because you value the community and equipment, look into off-peak membership options that cost less,
or explore community-run fitness groups that operate on a donation basis.
The goal is to continuously refine your financial ecosystem, ensuring that every dollar works toward a purpose that resonates with you. Sustainability is where many minimalist experiments falter, so let's talk about how to embed these habits into your long-term routine. One effective method is to schedule quarterly financial reviews, a dedicated time each season to revisit your budget, assess new expenses, and realign them with your evolving goals. During these reviews, ask yourself whether any new habits have crept in that no longer serve you, and apply the same elimination process you used at the start. This regular check-in acts as a safeguard against slipping back into old patterns, and it reinforces the habit of intentional spending. Another powerful habit is to adopt a one-in, one-out rule for any new recurring commitment. Whenever you feel the urge to add a new subscription, service, or recurring purchase, first identify an existing expense of equal or greater cost that you can eliminate. This rule creates a natural balance, preventing your financial load from ballooning over time. It also forces you to evaluate each addition critically, ensuring that only the most valuable and aligned expenses survive. Beyond the numbers, the psychological benefits of radical financial minimalism are profound. By freeing yourself from the constant chatter of bills and notifications, you create mental space that can be redirected toward creative pursuits, personal growth,
or deeper relationships.
Many people report a heightened sense of freedom, describing the experience as lightening the load that had been weighing them down for years.
This sense of liberation often translates into increased productivity, better decision-making, and a more optimistic outlook on life.
If you've been following along, you might be wondering whether this approach is realistic for someone with a family, a mortgage, or other large financial obligations.
The answer is yes, but the implementation looks different for each situation.
The core principles, intentionality, elimination, and alignment with values remain the same, but the scale of the changes adapts to your circumstances. For a family, the focus might be on reducing discretionary spending on entertainment and dining out, while preserving essential expenses like housing and education. For someone with a mortgage, the strategy could involve refinancing to a lower rate,
then redirecting the saved interest payments toward a high-yield savings vehicle or an investment that aligns with long-term goals.
The key is to start small, build momentum, and gradually expand the scope of your minimalism as you become more comfortable with the process.
Now, let's address some common objections you might have. One frequent concern is the fear of missing out on experiences or conveniences that society deems essential.
The reality is that many of these perceived necessities are socially constructed, and by questioning their true value,
you often discover that you can achieve the same satisfaction through simpler, more authentic means.
Another worry is the potential impact on social relationships, especially when declining invitations that involve spending.
In my experience, honest communication about your financial goals tends to foster respect and sometimes even inspires friends to reconsider their own habits.
You might be surprised to find a community of like-minded individuals who support each other's minimalist journeys,
turning what could be an isolating experience into a shared adventure.
If you're still on the fence, consider a low-risk trial. Pick a single category of expense, perhaps the streaming services you use, and commit to a 30-day pause.
Observe how you feel, what you do with the freed-up time, and how your finances respond. Use that insight as a springboard for broader changes.
Remember, radical minimalism is not about deprivation. It's about empowerment through choice.
By consciously deciding where your money goes, you reclaim control over your life's direction.
Before we wrap up, I want to hear from you. Have you ever tried a minimalist financial experiment? What was the most surprising outcome you discovered?
Share your stories in the comments below, and let's learn from each other's experiences. If you found any of these ideas useful, give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing so you don't miss future deep dives into lifestyle design, personal finance,
and the art of living with intention.
Your support helps the channel keep bringing you practical, research-backed strategies that can truly transform the way you think about money and life.
In closing, remember that the journey toward radical financial minimalism is a marathon, not a sprint. It's built on small, deliberate actions that compound over time, creating a ripple effect that touches every facet of your existence.
By continuously questioning, eliminating, and aligning, you craft a financial landscape that serves as a foundation for the life you truly desire. Keep experimenting, stay curious, and let the freedom that comes from financial clarity guide you toward a richer, more purposeful future. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.